I'm going to do something different, because you have already been hearing Vedanta for more than an hour. There are two questions which predominate the minds of our student community nowadays. So it has been my observation that these two questions are quite common here. So this is a paper attempted to answer those two questions. It's an attempt made to answer those two questions. The first question is, where do values come from? Are they just impositions meant to restrict our freedom, concoctions of some brain, or is there a deeper perspective? Where do they exactly come from? How are they manufactured? How do they come into operation? And secondly, do values have a global platform to stand upon? We live in a globalized world, and if we say merely that values are only subjective, and well, we today can't be restricted to our ethnic, regional cultures. We have to interact with the whole world. So does today's globalized world have a platform for the values we have held to be dear all through the ages? We will discuss just these two questions in this paper. Now, we know that values are derived from somewhere. They are not just made up in some brain. Where are they derived from? We have always held that our values have been derived from our spiritual heritage, which is Vedanta. Now you may ask me, what is this Vedanta? Vedanta in a nutshell is very simple. Let me tell you what Vedanta in a nutshell is. It gives you only two postulates. First of all, it speaks of the divinity of man, the divinity of the human soul, which means to say the spiritual core of the human personality is divine, and that is the real you. When we keep saying I, the import is this is what it means, that the human being is essentially the Atman and functioning through this body-mind complex. We are essentially the Atman of the nature of pure consciousness, functioning through this body and mind. This is the first postulate of Vedanta, which means you are a spark of divinity. You are of the very nature of God. The second postulate says, every other being whom you see is that very same Atman in different bodies and minds. So the difference lies in the body-mind complex. The essential spiritual core, the Atman, is the same in all beings. Now the logical conclusion of this second postulate would be, then who are you? You are me in another form. Because the Atman is the same, that is the spiritual core of our personality, the body and mind are the covering over that. So then you become me in another form, I become you in another form. So then this is where values come in. Values arise in the social context. When I think of you, when I have to interact with you, when I have to interact with others, that is where values come in. So you see, our Vedanta is a direct pointer to where values come from. And also, why should I be good to you? The simple question of today's ethics. Why should I do good to you? Because the rationale is this, you are me in another form. If I do harm to you, in the long run, I only harm myself. If I do good to you, I do good to myself. Because the rationale behind all ethics is, you and I are essentially one in the Atman, manifesting through different bodies and minds. So this is what is making the difference, but the core is the same. So doing harm to others is only harming myself in the long run. Doing good to others is only doing good to myself. This is the simple equation. Now, Swami Vivekananda made another very interesting statement. Another, you can say, a corollary of these two postulates. It is this. All healthy social changes are effects of the spiritual forces working within any society. Which means, if the spiritual forces were not working, we would not have a very healthy social ethic. Now, how valid is this statement, and wherein lies the truth of this? We will see that in the origination of values from Vedanta. A corollary of this is, again, values arise in the social context, when I have to deal with you and not merely living with myself. Then values come in. So where do these values have their origin? This is the sequence of value origination. How values interface spirituality and social culture. You see, values interface self-culture and social culture. When spiritual knowledge dawns, that is when a true, real, authentic character is formed. From these characters arise values. They feel that things should go in a particular way. From these values emerge attitudes in social life. And from these emerge behavioral patterns in society. So you see, values interface self-culture and social culture. Without self-culture, without the growth of spirituality, true spiritual knowledge, I am not speaking of the mumbo-jumbo of various religions. The true spiritual, the kernel of religion is spirituality. True spirituality always fosters a very high character. And that gives rise to values. These values in the social system give rise to attitudes and behavioral patterns. That is why these, at the interface of these two, lie values. They are not concoctions of some human brain. They are not assumptions. They actually arise when society understands the need to do certain things in its interaction with its members. So this is the origination of values. Let me give you an example to this from this life. You see, I told you it is from the spiritual element that the value arises. From the value arises the social ethic. There is a very beautiful example in Gandhiji's life. You see, this incident is unfortunately not very popular. I don't know why, but it is there in my Experiments with Truth, autobiography of Gandhiji. It's a very interesting incident. When Gandhiji was only 15 years old, that time he had need for some money, and his father was a very strict man, so he could not straight away approach him. So what he did was, his elder brother had a golden amulet which was carved. So he chipped off a portion of the carving, sold it, made some money, and used it for whatever purpose he required it for. But then, within a few days, it started weighing very heavy on his heart. He thought, I stole, and from my elder brother, and I made money in this way. What is this? I can't bear it. After a few days, he could not bear it. So what he did was, he put the whole incident down on a piece of paper, and then added 2 sentences at the end, saying, please punish me, don't punish yourself, but punish me because I stole. And then he went and gave this chit to his father. His father was reading the newspaper. He saw the paper and he saw his son standing in front of him with head bowed down. And then his father looked up and then he read through the paper, and when he came to the last sentence, forgive me, I have stolen, punish me, but don't punish yourself. There were pearls of tears in his eyes. That is how Gandhiji has described it. Pearls of tears in his eyes. And then he looked up at his son. He understood that this boy is admitting what he has done. You see, the innate spirituality is bringing the value into manifestation. Standing there, Gandhiji understood another very important thing. He understood that, you see, it is truth that gives freedom. He stood free there. He could tell out what he has done, and he felt the weight of his heart. It was removed from his heart. Truth gives freedom. Truth gives courage. It gives the strength to stand and admit. It gives the strength to proceed with life in a new way after that. And truth creates a bond. His father could always trust his son because of this incident, and Gandhiji formed a deep bond with his father because now they knew that the son could not go on a dishonest path. And this became his social ethic for life. He understood from this incident that truth always saves. Truth is the only policy. So you see, throughout his life, Satya and Ahimsa, he was totally committed to that. So you see how the spiritual element goes on to form the value, which goes on to become the social ethic. This is where values are derived from. All our values, the values which we have held to be dear, the values of the cardinal values of Indian culture are all derived from Vedanta. You take the very first, human dignity. You see, so many people around the world have said so many things. Why is man the measure of things? Why is man at the center of development? Because it is in the human experience alone that he can understand the true import of I. Self-consciousness is an experience of the human being. It doesn't happen in animals. And he can go to the core of this self. He can find out what it means. And that is the glory of being human. He can manifest that divinity in his everyday life. Man becomes God. And that is the glory of the human experience. This is what contributes to human dignity. What is it that makes for equality? You see, sociologists, economists have all the time been using this word, equality. But what is it that makes us equal? As bodies we are not equal. As minds we are so different. As intellects we are very different. A superior intellect will always shine over an inferior intellect. Where lies equality? It lies only at this level. It is the same Atman manifesting through different bodies and minds. This is where we are equal. Nowhere else. So unless we have this background, this backdrop, how can we talk of equality? It is a spiritual perspective which gives you this background, which gives you this backdrop. So this is what has contributed to the study of equality in our culture. And so also unity. We always believed in unity but not in uniformity. Now what is this unity? Again, it comes from the Vedas, when they say that the one being is manifesting as many. Purusha Vedagam Sarvam. So that contributes to unity. What contributes to liberty? Our idea of liberty is very different from the Western idea. Liberty is not licensed to do whatever you like. Liberty is freedom of the soul. Freedom to exercise your will as you want it to be. Freedom to be good because that's your essential nature. Not good because somebody is forcing you to be good. That is freedom. It is not license. So where does this come from? It again comes from this Atma Tattva, the autonomy of consciousness from the body-mind complex. The Atman is autonomous. It is totally free, completely separate from the body-mind complex. That is what contributes to my will. I can do whatever I want. I can be whatever I want to be. In my life, I am the creator of my destiny. Nobody else. So this is what has contributed to the concept of liberty in our culture. So also tolerance. This has been the glory of India, that it has accepted everyone into its bosom. So wherein lies this idea? Again, from the statement, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Truth is only one. The sages have called it variously. That is why I accept everyone. Religions are not different. God is not different. God cannot be different. Our minds are different. So different paths have been given to the same God. And those paths are religions. So God is not different. He is the same state of consciousness which we call God in every religion. But because our minds are different, different paths have been given to us. Those are the different religions. So you see, everything becomes explainable when you take this kind of a rationale. It's a rationale to all ethics, actually, the Vedanta philosophy. So also are our other values. But I won't go into any more because we are running short of time. We alone hold that human evolution culminates, you see, with this human brain. Organic evolution culminates here, and then it proceeds along psycho-spiritual lines. A man becomes better and better and gradually becomes a god, manifests godly qualities. So this is the ladder of evolution according to our culture. This is again derived from Vedanta. So you see, many of our values, all of our values actually have this foundation. Now, that is why Vivekananda laid stress on this, on the importance of our culture. You see, he says, no amount of force or government or legislature can change the conditions of a race. It is spiritual and ethical culture alone that can change wrong racial tendencies for the better. It is culture that withstands shocks, not a simple mass of knowledge. Not a simple mass of knowledge. It is culture that withstands shocks. So the importance of preserving our cultural values, the importance of disseminating our cultural values, the importance of reinforcing our cultural values, whenever chance permits, this should be taken as a responsibility, a collective responsibility. Now, we go to the second question. Do all values stand on a universal global platform? You see, for that, since our young people have these questions nowadays, that we can't apply these values in a global culture. So then this is an answer to that. All spiritual knowledge gives rise to two sets of values. The first set of values are eternal values for good living. What are the cardinal principles of righteous living? They don't change. This is what the Shruti embodies actually. These are the eternal values which serve as guideposts and ideals to your life. And the second set of values which spiritual knowledge gives you are what are called epochal values, smriti. They change in particular contexts. They change in application. These give rise to our social ethics. Our dharma shastras, everything has arisen from the smriti. Our modern smriti is the Constitution of India. So you see, all spiritual knowledge gives rise to these two sets of values. Don't think values don't stand on a global platform. The cardinal principles of good living always hold. And they are the same in every culture, in every country, in every time, in every clime. But epochal values, smriti, change according to time, space and circumstance, and they have to be applied accordingly. Let me give you an example to this. Take for example a manager who has been able to derive the value of service from his spirituality. So his will not be a mere corporate identity. He will want a greater identity as a global citizen to be able to render service to others. His goal will be human excellence rather than mere profit making. So from this standpoint, from this vantage point, what will his values be? His eternal value will be credibility in all his actions, because that is what the attitude of service produces. And his epochal value, that is in his particular work field, will be what we call IEM, Indian Ethos of Management. 100 years back, there was no management studies in India because there were no such corporates. Today's B schools have this IEM because we have this kind of a setup today. So you see, these values, the second set of values, change with time. They change according to the particular context, according to your workplace. But the first set of values will never change. In this example, his credibility gives him what you call TQM, total quality management. He will never compromise on the quality of his work. He will never compromise on his product. And zero defect. It naturally leads to that, his eternal value of credibility. And his particular value of IEM leads to all that is required for a proper manager. Resource management, human capital management, what is called servant leadership today, time management, trusteeship management, respecting scalar chain of authority. All this will naturally follow up with IEM. So you see, in any particular example, you can draw two sets of values. One set of values always hold. They are the props for righteous living standards. And the second set of values have to be applied according to the context, according to the workplace. So, as an answer, as a conclusion to these two questions in the minds of our youngsters, you see, values are not concoctions of a human brain. They are the essential props of good living. And that is why values arise from the spiritual element in the human being, and they give rise to the social ethic. And values are always relevant. They always have a global platform to stand upon. Never think that they don't have and they are irrelevant to this present age. Swamiji very much wanted that we stand up for our values. He said, the religions of the world have become lifeless mockeries. What the world wants is character, and that will come only from values. The more we can go into the depths of this, make an original study of the origin of ethics, the more we will understand all this is perfectly applicable even today. It is perfectly applicable, and that is what is expected of us from Swamiji. With this, let me conclude. Thank you very much.